J.D. Vance real quickly. So workers allege nightmare conditions in the Kentucky startup that J.D. Vance helped fund. This was released earlier in the month, but unsurprising that J.D. Vance is not a great boss. Reportedly touted as guiding principles for investing in a company, a business should not only turn a profit, but it should help American communities. He said, this doesn't want to load.
A nightmare. It was a nightmare that should have never happened.
That nightmare happened here at this nearly empty greenhouse in eastern Kentucky. AppHarvest, a failed high-tech startup, promised local workers a future, but spiraled into broken promises. Anthony Morgan bought into the company's public pitch that it was for Appalachia by Appalachians.
We was being told that, hey guys, he's from here.
Thank you. Wow.
He is J.D. Vance, the Republican nominee for vice president.
I will be a vice president who never forgets where he came from.
Leaning on his personal rise out of poverty to reach swing state voters as Donald Trump's running mate.
I chose him because he's for the worker. He's for the people that work so hard and perhaps weren't treated like they should have been.
But before politics, Vance was a venture capitalist and AppHarvest's first outside investor, eventually steering millions of dollars to the company. Vance was a lead pitchman for the vertical farming startup, tweeting he was a supporter and investor, writing, "I love this company."
It's a great
J.D.
business
Vance
that's
has
making a big difference in the world.
History of flip-flopping remember, it was not even like a year and a half ago where he called Donald Trump America's Hitler, and now he's his vice presidential running mate.
The company's investor presentation pledged a commitment to Appalachia, estimating thousands of new jobs to a poverty-stricken area.
A major emphasis with them was, we want to bring work to eastern Kentucky. This is why we are here.
Morgan left a stable job to join AppHarvest as a crop care specialist, pruning the greenhouse-grown vegetables. A single father with 6-year-old twins, the job rapidly turned when production fell behind under what a dozen workers described as...
It's not even just lies and lies and lies because he's a politician. It goes beyond that, because many politicians will lie for their own benefit. J.D. Vance and Donald Trump and J.D. Vance just lie to lie often. They don't really even need to sometimes. And beyond that, J.D. Vance is the type of person who just wants you to suffer. If you are not a rich white male American, J.D. Vance hates you personally. And we know this because he wrote the foreword to Project 2025. You don't work with the Heritage Foundation and write part of Project 2025 unless you aren't that hateful and have those ideologies, because that's what they believe. That is what the Heritage Foundation believes, is that you're not deserving of respect if you're a black person. If you are a woman, you're not deserving of bodily autonomy. If you are a Hispanic person, you don't deserve respect. If you're a queer person, you don't deserve to exist, according to these people. They fucking hate you. And also, on top of that, they just want to suck as much money and happiness from your life as physically possible so that they can have it and you can suffer.
CNN as mismanagement, including dangerous conditions. Employees filed multiple complaints to the state and federal government alleging heat exhaustion, working in extreme temperatures, and lack of water breaks, though the cases were all closed with no citations.
Remember, stuff like this isn't uncommon. In fact, this is one of the reasons why Elon Musk doesn't allow OSHA investigators into some of his plants, like his Tesla plants, and I think there's the really big one in, I think it's California or Arizona, where he just hasn't allowed OSHA in to inspect because it's dangerous. They don't care about your safety. They will absolutely sacrifice your safety and put your life at risk if it makes them a little bit more money.
I think about the hottest that I experienced was around 128 degrees.
Inside.
Inside. A couple days a week, you'd have ambulance show up, and you've seen people leaving on gurneys to go to the hospital.
The cuts came next to promised worker benefits. And then foreign workers came in to fill those so-called local jobs.
The second round of folks they brought in was folks on work visas. And they didn't bring just a van full. They brought.
Speaking of the heat exhaustion that they were talking about, I just looked it up. Because in Australia, after a specific temperature is reached, work generally stops, especially if you work outdoors. And yes, even though he works indoors, it is agriculture. Likely this would have been stopped too. It's 95 degrees Fahrenheit. In Australia, once it hits 95 degrees Fahrenheit, most people don't, like construction, road work, farmers, they all go home. You're not supposed to work after that heat. This guy was working in 128-degree heat. And of fucking course, ambulances are getting called to work every day. 95 is a little low, and it's not the law. It's just the recommended temperature for that kind of work to be stopped. And as it gets hotter, it's more and more likely. Once it hits 95, a lot of the time it's road work crews that get sent home first because they're standing on black asphalt. And construction workers. But yeah, 128, that should just straight up be illegal. That's abuse.
Bus loads.
Documents show App Harvest hired contract workers from outside the region. At one point, as many as 500, the majority of its workforce, not locals.
Yeah, after claiming that this would provide local jobs, again, they're liars because they would have to pay the locals more.
But that's not the image App Harvest wanted the world to see. This is Kentucky Senator Mitch McConnell visiting in 2021.
Mitch McConnell coming through.
Man,
Were
really
the
looks like
migrant
a turtle.
workers there at the time? You're laughing. I mean, I look at the video. It doesn't look like there's any.
They hid these guys.
Of course
They
they
took
did.
them out of the plant. They was
I
gone.
say this all the time. Republicans whinge about immigration constantly, but they don't actually want to do anything about it because it benefits them. Migrant workers coming into the United States, again, I've said this about 1 billion times now, pay taxes, do jobs that Americans don't want to do for less money, they commit less crimes, and, I never understood the anti-immigration stance of Republicans. The reason for it is fear-mongering. They want the American people to be afraid of the border and of immigrants so that they will vote for Republicans as, protecting the country, strong on immigration. But this rhetoric has gone back to like the Bush era, and they've never actually stopped anything at the border because it's not beneficial to stop immigration. It's not. Our GDP goes up when more immigrants come in. Our crime rates are not going up because they commit less crimes. Most of our agriculture industry is done by undocumented migrants or just documented migrants as well. But they just love to complain about this just because it adds something. They don't have anything. If you actually try and convince the American people to vote for Republican policies by being honest, no one's going to vote for you because their policies are give all of your money to like rich people and to take away your rights. That's their policies. That's all they really have. All of it's done by migrants. Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. The ownership of our food production like plants and all of it, that's not migrants. But yes, all of the workers, of course they're migrants.
And then Mitch McConnell's giving a speech about all this work that App Harvest has brought Eastern Kentuckians.
I like
Construction, I again went over this last stream, is actually number 2 in the list of jobs that are mostly done by migrants, especially undocumented migrants. It was agriculture, construction, manufacturing, and then the service industry. So yeah.
The idea of taking the tomato
Totally
market
right.
away from the Mexicans. How about that?
So they were trying to hide the migrant workers.
Specifically,
Wait, what did he just say?
This worker, who asked not to be identified.
Kentuckians.
I like the idea of taking the tomato market away from the Mexicans. How about that?
So they were trying to hide the migrant workers.
Specifically, yeah.
This worker, who asked not to be identified, says the hiring of migrant workers became part of a mirage that App Harvest was helping the region. He took this video as his co-workers clapped for visiting investors.
And anytime they did that, they kept workers off the floor doing our stationary parade while people come through. And it was awkward having
So you know what my issue is here? it's not about this company hiring migrants. It's about the working conditions of the migrants. I'm all for giving both documented and undocumented migrants jobs. Give them all jobs, but regulate the industries so that they're not abusing the workers. What we're watching here happening in this little plant and the degree of unsafety, the working at incredibly hot temperatures, the lack of accountability for like the leadership of the company. This is not uncommon. This is the vast majority of US companies and how they behave, because that's how companies are meant to behave. Corporations exist to make profit, and that's it. And if you're not making profit, then you're failing. And this is the easiest way for them to make profit, is by cheating, by not following the rules, by harming the people that they work for, by underpaying them, by not paying enough attention to their safety. This is not uncommon, and we don't do anything about it because we're America and we love corporations. We don't want to regulate them at all because that would be socialism, and we can't have that, can we?
And I wouldn't say that I have fully developed views on this, but to me what it is sort of a value system to replace the fact that they're all fundamentally atheist or agnostic. They have no real value system. Their only value system is achieve in a very conventional way.
This is JD Vance attacking women who can't have kids just a couple days ago, which is wonderful. Oh, thanks for the follow.
And so the idea that somehow they're pursuing racial or gender equity is like the value system that gives their life meaning. Well, of course, they all find that value system leads to misery, leads to unhappiness. And so I think that what happens is, like, whenever you really pursue something, right? Like let's say
I have a couple points to make about what he said. I'm going to lose my train of thought if we don't go one at a time.
Value system.
So first of all, he's claiming that you can't have a value system as an atheist. Again,
what it is sort of a value system to replace the fact that they're all fundamentally atheist or agnostic. They have no real value system. Their only value system is achieve in a very conventional way.
Now, this, I think, applies more to him than anyone else. I don't think that JD Vance is an actual Christian, first of all, because real Christians don't behave this way. B, please continue attacking women. It's definitely going to help you during the election. You're definitely not pushing away Republican women to go, not vote for Trump, but continue on.
And so the idea that somehow they're pursuing racial or gender equity is like the value system that gives their life meaning. Well,
the idea of pursuing equity is not a value system that gives my life meaning. The idea of pursuing equity for everybody is just morally correct. The argument that it's insane that the agnostic atheists don't have morals is the craziest thing. It's the base argument of religious extremists who like to argue that the only reason that humans aren't constantly ripping each other apart and cannibals and savages is because God has given us rules to follow. These are idiots, the people that actually believe this. They're genuine morons. To be able to not be able to, have ethics and morals without somebody telling you what they are. Because that is what he wants. He wants to tell you what the right thing to do is.
Of course, they all find that value system leads to misery, leads to unhappiness.
So again, looking for gender and racial equity leads to misery and unhappiness?
Leads to misery, leads to unhappiness. And so I think that what happens is, whenever you really pursue something, right? Like let's say a doctor gives you a medicine to cure a disease and it doesn't work, right? The patient gets worse. Well, you can conclude one of two things. Either the medicine isn't working, or the patient was so sick that what they need is even more of the medicine that you originally prescribed. And I think the gender and equity stuff is like, we need more of the medicine. Okay, clearly this value set has made me...
So what he's saying there isn't we need to be more equitable. It's the medicine here is shutting down conversations about equity.
A miserable person who can't have kids because I already, passed the biological period when it was possible. And I live in a 1,200 square foot apartment in New York and I pay $5,000 a month.
I don't know why he keeps thinking that you need children to be, well, actually, I do know why. The argument that you need children to be happy is being pushed because they just think of women as incubators, where we exist only to push out babies and nothing else. And if we don't do that, to him, then we failed in our base instinctual need, our purpose in life. And so that makes us miserable. Says the very, very, very obvious 4chan incel groiper, JD Vance.
Month for it, but I'm really better than these other people.
Sorry, he's not an incel. He has a wife that he had to apologize on TV for not being white about.
What I'm gonna do is project my racial and gender sensitivities on the rest of them. And the reason that our society is broken is because these people don't think the exact way that I think. Even though the way that I think has made me a miserable person, I just need to make more people think like that.
It's so funny. Every accusation is a confession to these people. It really is. What he's accusing other people of doing, of the left of doing, just apply it to him and it makes significantly more sense. He's the one that wants to push his ideology on everybody else. He thinks that society's broken because not everyone thinks like him. He thinks that, there are degenerates, socially poisoned. This is Trump's words, but degenerates that are poisoning the culture of the United States. In his view, in my view, it is him that is doing that, because who he's talking about are just people who want everyone to be kind. All I've ever advocated for is just be a nice fucking person. I have a hard time thinking that he believes this. I think he's just appealing to the ultra. He doesn't believe this. He doesn't believe anything. He's a grifter. He's trying to appeal, yes, like you said, to the ultra conservative voters, but really he's aiming this towards the religious extremists, like the Christian extremists, the evangelical nationalists, and to the white nationalists. This is what this is aimed at. It's not even aimed at the general MAGA base. It's the Nazi MAGA base and the Christian Nazi MAGA base that this type of rhetoric is aimed at. He might actually believe it too, some of it. A lot of it he probably does believe, if I'm being honest.
Teach this in our schools, in our universities, even in our elementary schools, because once everybody agrees with me, then everything will finally come.
Again, the thing that he's talking about of everyone needs to agree with me is be a nice fucking person, mind your own business, and
now the debate
nice
over vouchers
people.
and
Hush, don't autoplay. We're not there yet. We have one more of JD Vance to go through.
His posts over the last 48 hours.
Actually, this is a whole thread. Jesus. All right, all I really care about is this part, because this is the part that I linked in. Where are we?
Night after CNN released a small clip of the Harris interview, you on Twitter posted a clip from a Miss Teen USA beauty pageant from 2007, Caitlin Upton, and you wrote, "I have gotten a hold of the full Kamala Harris CNN interview." Now, this thing that surfaced around the internet for a few years, she struggled answering a question back in this beauty pageant. I'm not sure you're aware, in 2015, Caitlin Upton did an interview with New York Magazine about all the social media attention this clip got, and she said, "I definitely went through a period where I was very, very depressed, but I never let anybody see that stuff except for people I could trust. I had some very dark moments where I thought about committing suicide." So when
before we actually get into the point of this clip, again, this is what they like to do. The left does this to an extent too, but those are the it's a very specific part of the left that does this, and they're not really leftists. It's more the red fasci types. But to make fun of someone on the internet to the point of them considering suicide is just wrong. Be nice to people, guys. Be kind. Kindness is good.
Posted this last night. Were you aware that the woman you were posting a picture of had contemplated committing suicide for the attention it received?
No, certainly not, John, and my heart goes out to her, and I hope that she's doing well. Look, I've said a lot of things on camera. I've said a lot of stupid things on camera. Sometimes when you're in the public eye, you make mistakes, and again, I think the best way to deal with it is to laugh at ourselves, laugh at this stuff.
So he wants to laugh at ourselves and laugh at this stuff of this thing that almost got someone to kill themselves. Laugh at it. That's how you deal with it. Don't be sad.
Try to have some fun in politics. I posted a meme from 20 years ago, and I think the fact that we're talking about that instead of the fact that American families can't afford groceries or health care, young families can't afford to buy a home to raise their families in. Those are the real crises that we should focus on, and there's nothing that says that we can't tell some jokes along the way while we deal with the very...
You can tell lots of jokes. I think the fact that he can't seem to accept the concept of a joke that he told hurts somebody is just not something that he can accept. It's like, oh, but I was just joking. You should just laugh it off. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings.
Very serious business of bringing back our public policy. Politics has gotten way too lame, John, way too boring. You can have some fun while making a good argument to the American people about
Of course politics can be fun. Of course we can make jokes. Making jokes at other people's expense, though, can sometimes lead to bad outcomes. It's not hard to understand this. Well, maybe it is for Republicans because they continue to do it over and over again.
You're going to improve their lives.
Okay, I just want to be clear, though. You said you did know. Would you like to apologize to Caitlin Upton for posting that last night, given what you've now learned?
John, I'm not going to apologize for posting a joke, but I wish the best for Caitlin. I hope that she's doing well. And
that's a Trump voter too. Like this Kate Upton voted for Donald. This is a Republican that he's talking. He won't even apologize for what he did to her.
Again, what I'd say is one bad moment shouldn't define anybody, and the best way to deal with this stuff is to laugh at ourselves.
Last night, Vice President Harris...
Laugh at ourselves, That's the way to deal with it. All right, whatever. Vance...
This is...
Hush. I hate Twitter's autoplay.
Now look, the Kamala Harris answer to this is to take law-abiding American citizens' guns away from them. That is what Kamala Harris wants to do. She says, look, I don't like this. I don't like to admit this.
No one wants to take your guns away. Maybe just like one of them that you don't need. It's an assault rifle ban, and it's not even going to pass. We would need to win all three, the houses of the government. We need the House, the Senate, and the presidency to be able to pass an assault rifle ban. It's just not going to happen.
I don't like that this is a fact of life. But if you are a psycho and you want to make headlines, you realize that our schools are soft targets. And we have got to bolster security at our schools so that a person who walks through the front door...
He's calling this a fact of life. There are countries in the world that have a lot of guns, but don't have this type of crime happening, right? You don't have psychos going in and shooting up schools in Switzerland, where... Is it Switzerland that has a bunch of guns? Is it the Swiss? It's either Switzerland, Norway. It's a Nordic country. Now Switzerland has a whole bunch of bomb shelters. Yes, it is Switzerland. They love their guns more than Americans do. However, they have actual laws, about storage and carry. We have these laws too, obviously, but gun culture in Switzerland is a strong culture compared to other countries of the world. Recreational shooting is widespread practice in Switzerland, with guns being a popular form of recreation, encouraged by the government. And the way they do this is actually properly organizing events. They teach kids. Another possibility for children to shoot is young shooters. The SAT, Lit Shooting Off and Duty Activities, funds lessons in which Swiss children can learn how to shoot using, I guess that's a gun, starting at 15 years old for the regular course, but as young as 10. This activity is free for young shooters, and they're able to take home the rifle in between lessons if they're 17. They don't have school shootings in Switzerland. You know why? Because people talk about guns in a different way. They talk about safety first. And They have actual fucking legislation that makes sure that you are stable, that you should be able to carry a gun. It's not a fact of life, like JD Vance says. If it was, there'd be plenty happening in Switzerland too. It's our gun culture that is wrong. I don't know. It's just so frustrating. It's the gun culture that's wrong. That's it. It's just that. I mean, again, lessons, teachers. The gun issue has always upset you. Well, yes, me too, because I'm not anti-gun. I don't have a gun, but I think you should probably go buy one if you're a leftist, because right now, almost all of the people who have guns are the crazy right-wingers. But yeah, it is depressing that we have all of this crime, all of these shootings. Students die all the time from school shootings, and we've never done anything about it. The only gun legislation I remember being passed in my lifetime is the fucking bump stocks ban that they took away. People hate to admit that some people shouldn't have guns, and yes, you're right. Some people should not have guns. In fact, I would argue most people should not have guns, but most people do have guns. At the moment, like, I don't know, it's such a difficult issue to fix. Even in Australia, there was a big shooting a few decades ago, and then they introduced very strict gun legislation into Australia. Whereas, like, now, if you own a gun in this country, in Australia, the police will come to your house to check that it's stored correctly, like randomly, twice a year, I believe. But we now have more guns than we did here prior to the shooting, where they, banned semi-automatic guns, no automatic rifles. We put in a lot more gun regulation than America has decades ago, and we still have more guns than we did before. However, I haven't seen a mass shooting in Australia. I've lived here 5 years. I've seen people go out and stab 5 or 6 people before they get arrested, but not shoot because they can't get a gun. Could you imagine a guy that goes and stabs 5 people in the street? What if he had a gun? How many more people would die? It's when people say common sense gun legislation, that's what they mean is, on a basic fundamental level, do you trust this person to carry a firearm? And honestly, a lot of the time I would say no.